Hello, Kurt Jackson here with this week's Your Money Matters. With the holiday, I was not these are a little hard to do on short notice to put them all together. So I wasn't going to do one this week, but I read something this morning that I wanted to share with you. It's about all you folks have your money in a 401k for retirement. I've been talking a little bit more and more about that. I've always hit on the fact that I don't think 401ks are the best place for your money. I've got a whole bunch of reasons why. Some more and more are coming to light on some of the backdoor dealings that are really impacting you. Things that you don't, unless you really understood investments and all of that, you probably never would have guessed was going on. We've talked a little bit about in the last week or so in some of my articles about Boeing had a case where their employees sued them for the performance of the 401k with excessive fees and all that. And Boeing, not too long ago, settled for that. But here's something I saw. This was in an industry related article from one of the many publications that I try to keep up on. And the title of it was 7 Things Fiduciaries Shouldn't Say in Court. Now, fiduciary means that they're supposed to be acting in your best interest. And all the 401ks have fiduciaries, and they're supposed to be setting these things up and running them and helping you with your best interest at heart. Well, this lawsuit was first filed. Okay. This is lessons from Spano versus Boeing cases on. It's the case on excessive 401k fee claims. It was first filed in September of 2006 and based on claims that Boeing fiduciaries failed their duties of prudence under the Employee Retirement Income Security Act, that's called ERISA, dating back to the 1990s, a case that was widely considered the first in a well-documented series of 401k excessive fee claims. All right? I'm not going to get on the legal mumbo jumbo, we're just kind of give you a little background there. So basically, Boeing officials had maintained that the plan had not always been, compliant with ERISA, which is a government monitoring, but that it was one of the best 401k offerings in the market, and that they vowed to fight the case until the end. But of course they didn't, because the discretion and everybody got involved, proving the better part of valor, and a preliminary settlement was announced as the proceedings were set to begin. At its heart, the case was about Boeing's relationship with State Street Bank. That happened to be who they was managing their 401k, and that the fees that they charged as keeper of the plan, the plan's valued at these days around $45 billion. Right? But there were also claims against the prudence of a science and technology sector fund added to the investment menu in the high-flying days of the late 90s. Remember when we had the crash 2000 to 2003? A lot of that was due to the tech bubble. That's what they're talking about. And that's when tech companies were valued far beyond the revenues that they generated. So look, if you have a 401k, you might want to take note of some of the incriminating things that these fiduciaries said. Okay, and these are the people that are supposed to be acting in your best interest that are running your 401k. Here's number 1. It's not my job. And it was not the Boeing company's responsibility to make decisions, as it was not their responsibility for them to go into a guaranteed contract fund. An individual has the right to shoot themselves in the foot if they so desire. They pay the price. Now, this is a fiduciary supposed to be looking out for your best interest, okay? Assuming you work for Boeing. I'm going to guess that Boeing's not the only one. I don't have proof of that. I don't claim to have proof of that. But this is pretty widespread from all that I've read throughout the 401k industry. And you know who said this was the former Boeing chief investment officer answering questions for plaintiffs' attorneys in 2008 regarding why a volatile technology sector fund was made available to plan participants. Sector funds are too risky to be included in plan menus, argued the plaintiffs argued. Here's number 2. Fees, what? Where? I don't think we monitored the con other than the original contract, and we did help beat them down on the fees in general overall. But beyond that, they would send us reports periodically, and that was a wandering basis, but we did not monitor the fees or where they went to. Okay, now that was the same former Boeing fiduciary in 2008 deposition on a question of whether or not the participants were paying too much in fees to a City Street Fund, the subsidiary money manager of State Street Bank, the plan's record keeper. Okay. Here's number 3. Don't ask me stuff I don't know. So you keep asking me about revenue sharing. I don't know a sprigging thing about revenue sharing. And this is a former Boeing fiduciary in 2008 deposition when asked if he could point to the revenue sharing plans or revenue sharing fees in the plan document. Number 4, don't ask me stuff I don't know if I knew. I either don't know or didn't care at the time because it was still sufficiently low that everybody was getting a very, very good deal. And this was a response from a former fiduciary. Now remember, every time I say fiduciary, that's someone that's supposed to be acting in your best interest. When the former fiduciary asked if he knew whether the City Street Fund charged 25 or 50 basis points in revenue sharing fees. Right now, just think about this. 50 basis points is a half a point, a half a percent. Okay, if you followed any of my writings, just a 1% fee over 40-year work life reduces the amount of wealth that you could build by up to 25% or more. Right? Now, this wasn't the only fees that was involved. This was just a revenue sharing fee, one of the many fees that are inside 401k plans that unless you know what you're doing when you read through all of that, you will never know that's there. And it's just eating away at your ability to build wealth all the time. Here's number 5. Prudence, I don't know her. I did not, as a fiduciary, have an obligation to go out and tell people I thought it was too risky. And this is a former fiduciary on questions of the prudence of including an allegedly volatile tech sector fund in the investment menu. All right, so I don't have an obligation to go out and tell people that I thought it was too risky. Isn't that what a fiduciary should be telling you? If they think it's too risky to put your retirement money in? Okay. Number 6, fiduciaries are like bad bartenders. And I'm a former bartender here, all right? So I take offense to this. It was very popular. It was a very popular area of interest at the time. That's why we offered the Science and Technology Fund. As a fiduciary, we gave them that option. As a fiduciary, I'm not responsible for telling them to put their money in there or not put their money in there. If you offer the chance for another drink before you go out on the highway and you choose to take that drink, that's your responsibility, not mine. That's another former fiduciary who's supposed to be acting in your best interest, all right? On more questions as to the prudence of offering a volatile sector fund to participants. All right. Please excuse me, I'm quoting this, so I'm not trying to use this salty language, but this is what they said. And number 7 is silly plaintiff. And the quote is ant shit. Okay, and that's how a former fiduciary characterized the plaintiff's claim that the plan allocated too much cash to the company's stock fund, to the detriment of plan participants and the benefit of State Street. All right, so that's all of my have here, and I know it's probably taking longer than what I thought because I was trying to do a quick one here. But folks, you need to realize that most, not all, but a lot of these, I shouldn't say most, a lot of these financial folks aren't acting in your best interest. They're trying to, the Department of Labor is trying to get pushed through a fiduciary rule. And I'm not saying that we don't need some more, I don't know if I want to say regulation, but we need some more people doing things right by people. The problem is, through all my research, okay, I didn't start out this, I guess, crusade, if you want to call it that, against Wall Street and all that they're doing. All I did, I was in the mortgage industry for 20 years. I've lived 1,000 financial lives through my clients. I saw people doing everything we've always been told to do, taught to do, myself included. Then from 2000 to 2002, I saw and people started coming back to me after that. They lost their behind doing as I did at that point in time. So I started to look into it to see if, because I always like to try to add value to what I was doing. And when I was doing mortgages, there was limited things you could do, but if I could help people be smarter with their money, I thought that would be a good idea. Started researching in 2003, retirement planning and investments and all that. And what I found was, I'll call it corruption. I'll call it lying. I'll call it, I don't know, misrepresents. I mean, there's so much going on. This whole system that Wall Street has set up, in my opinion, is totally designed to pull as much money out of your pocket and put it into theirs as possible. And they've got the backing of the government. They've got the media in their pockets. They can pretty much do almost anything they want. So they set this fiduciary standard where you're supposed to act in someone's best interest. Well, and I haven't thought of an analogy for this, but if no matter what I do isn't good for you, okay, if all the things that I've been trained in isn't necessarily in your best interest. How in the world, if I'm using those things, can I be acting in your best interest? Now, I can fully explain all that and the risks and all that, but most people's eyes just roll back in their head, glaze over. They don't understand all of that. We've been built to believe that, hey, if we take more risk, we get more reward. And that might be the case, but you might just be taking on more risk. So that's where I've morphed into this alternative retirement strategies thing that I'm so passionate about. I began this in 2003. I didn't have a set agenda of where I was going. I let the truth and the facts and everything take me where I'm at today, and I continue to follow up with that. And I just wish that people would think about this. I'm doing, slowly but surely, I'm getting people to listen to me about their 401k. Look, I know they say there's free money. I know they say that this is the best thing since sliced bread, but folks, it's not. Okay, it's not. Prime example: I have a client, 27 years, same employer, doing everything that they were always told to do, putting in between 10 to 15% of their salary into the 401k, getting a good match. Over that 27 years, they put in roughly $220,000 at the end of last year. The amount that they had, remember, they've done all the things right. They plus the the company match. They had $260,000 in their account. Are you kidding me? 220 was their own. I didn't want to break their heart, so we didn't even calculate how much their employer had contributed. But my guess is that it was more than $40,000. So they've put in more money than what they have because of the risk. And they're in these target date funds. And with TIAA CREF, that's supposed to be the best fund manager, rated by who, I don't know. So it's folks, the system's rigged against you. And I just hope more and more people will realize that and start to look at alternatives. I've found alternatives. Do I know 100% that they're the best alternatives? I don't know. There may be some that I don't know about. I find that hard to believe, but that's always possible. But I do know that the alternatives that I have, the strategies that we use, are better than the current stuff that most people do with 401ks, 403bs, 457 plans, IRAs. So, take a look at more of our stuff. You can go back to, actually, we just finished a series of Confessions of a Traditional Financial Planner. Got a lot of this information in that, why we think what we're doing is much better. And I'm happy to explain that to you in more detail and maybe make it towards your situation and not just a generic one, which is obviously hard to do. We can't do it specifically here. So, dang, I went longer than what I thought. Thanks for tuning in. I hope you enjoy this information. Please share it with your friends, your family, anyone you care about. People need to know this. And if you find this out and want to stay with the 401k, hey, that's on you then. And if you get to retirement and it doesn't work out like it was supposed to, like you'd been promised, you got nobody to blame but yourself because you knew about it. All right. So if I can help people know about this, they can make the decision whether they want to make changes or not. So thanks for tuning in. Hope to be back to you next week with a new topic, and we'll continue. If you guys have any requests, any suggestions, my contact information is up there on the screen. Email me a topic request, and I'll try to implement that in here in the coming weeks. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. Have a great week.